back in. Today we're going to be discussing, fantasy defenses. One of my favorite things to cover all offseason. Just been waiting for this, marking down the days so I finally get to this, and here we are. We're going to talk about fantasy defenses, how to draft them, who you should draft, and who you should stream. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's talk about the rules of this. All right, you should never, and I mean never, be the first team to draft a defense ever. As a matter of fact, ESPN analyzed 15 years of ADP data and found only 2 times in 15 years did the DST that was drafted first, second, third, or fourth, according to ADP, actually finish the top ranked fantasy defense. If that's not enough, there's just not a big enough gap between the defense 1 and the defense 12. Last season, the difference in that production was 45 points between that 1 to 12, 45 fantasy points. That is a less of a differential between the QB1 to QB3. All right. There's just not a big enough gap to be able to justify saying, oh, well, I got the Ravens or I got the Cowboys. It's not going to help you on a week. What you should really be looking for is week to week. That is what we should care about. Week to week. Stream your defenses. You don't need to waste heavy draft capital on a defense. Secondly, never draft more than one. You don't need to do it. There's no reason. I don't care about bye weeks. I don't care about nothing. We can stream on a week to week basis. Really, all we should be hunting is sacks and turnovers. Those are the two things that are going to matter the most in your fantasy defense. So I've already spoken enough about this. So let's move on and let's talk about two defenses that I don't mind drafting that are going a little bit later in terms of ADP. Some of you could definitely get probably in the last round of your fantasy draft. First up is Houston Texans. I actually love that defense this year. I love the additions of Daniil Hunter. They also added Danico Autry. They added Aziz Al-Shahir at linebacker. So this team is really set up really well. They invested in the draft, Kamari Lassiter, and then they also signed Jeff Okudah as more of a depth piece signing for their secondary. But the Houston Texans defense, I think, is going to be really good. They're ranked 13th in sacks last year and 5th in pressure rate. I think adding Daniil Hunter into this, pass rush even better. And honestly, D'Amico Ryans is one of the best defensive-minded coaches in the league as well. So I just love the Houston Texans defense as an option here. So they're number one. Number two option here, I think Philadelphia Eagles. Absolutely love them bringing in Vic Fangio this offseason. He is also one of the best defensive-minded coaches in the league. He has done a tremendous job over his career, and I think he's going to do a really good job with the Eagles. Eagles really revamped their defense, bringing in Devin White, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who they re-signed, Bryce Huff, Zach Braun, and they re-signed Avonte Maddox and Brandon Graham. They also invested with a first-round pick and Quinyon Mitchell as well. So I really like what the Eagles have done this offseason. I think they bounced back. They were really bad last year. They were the DST 27 over averaging 5.9 fantasy points per game. So I think that is the other option that you could look at. Now, as far as streaming options, this is where most of you should be living, honestly. First up is the New Orleans Saints. Really love the matchup against the Panthers. Last year, the Saints were actually the only team that finished outside of top 12 in sacks to actually finish inside the top 12 in fantasy scoring defenses. The only one. And that was pretty much because they did a good job negating points as they allowed the 6th fewest points per game last season. They finished at a DST 8. Now, this offseason, they haven't done a ton over the offseason, but they did bring in Chase Young, who we thought was going to be an absolute stud. It really hasn't lived up to that billing. Injuries have really cost him, but his rookie season, he had 7.5 sacks, and he has not topped that since then. They are going to need it because this team really struggled with getting pressure on quarterbacks last year. Cameron Jordan is getting up there in age, 35 years old. It's amazing he's even still playing. Then they have Carl Granderson as well. They did invest at the linebacker, bringing in Willie Gay, former Kansas City Chief. They also invested in the draft of Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second round. So I think it's a really good matchup against the Panthers. This defense should be better than it was last year, but a home matchup against the Panthers, I really like that. Let's keep moving here. Let's talk about a defense that you're going to be able to use not just week 1, but also week 2, and that is the Seattle Seahawks, which they get matchups against the Broncos and then the Patriots. The Seahawks were a nice source of sacks last season as they ranked 11th in sacks and 9th in pressure rate last year. The Seahawks also brought in a defensive-minded head coach with Mike McDonald. They also went out and invested in a first-round pick, Byron Murphy, who should really help this defensive front. So I really like what the Seahawks are doing with this defense. A really nice corner duo of Reek Woolen and Vaughn Witherspoon as well. So really like this defense this year, and I really like these first 2 weeks against the Broncos and Patriots. So Seattle Seahawks is definitely a team that I will probably be looking to draft in my own leagues as an option for those first couple of weeks. Then we'll move on from there. Lastly, we have the Cincinnati Bengals against the Patriots. Just a 1-week stream because the week 2 they play the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'll be out on that. Lou Anarumo is also one of the top tier defensive coordinators in the league. He does a phenomenal job with that defense every year. But the Bengals were 18th in sacks, the 14th in pressure rate last year. They did lose a couple of players this offseason with DJ Reader going to Detroit. Chidobe Awunzi signed with the Titans, and Nick Scott went to the Panthers. But they did plug some holes with Sheldon Rankins, Von Bell, and Geno Stone as their key acquisitions on the defensive side of the ball. So I do like Cincinnati against the Patriots. I think that is another defense you can look to stream. And then lastly, I do like the Chicago Bears versus Tennessee Titans. Chicago Bears actually were really good over the second half of the season. They went out and traded for Montez Sweat, and it's kind of changed the game. They also have honestly one of the best secondaries in the league too. Really love Jalen Johnson, top 5 corner here for Chicago Bears. So Chicago Bears have really tried over the last couple of years to really redefine this defense. Obviously, all the talks about their offense and with Caleb Williams and bringing in Keenan Allen. But I really like Chicago Bears defense against Tennessee. I think that's what you should be looking for in terms of streaming options. That being said, let me know in the comment section below. Are there any other defenses that you're really excited to draft that are going a little bit later, and maybe another streaming defense that you're looking for week 1? Let me know in the comment section below. We'll see you on the next one.